Assalamualaikum and good morning to Dr. Sabrina and to my fellow classmates. Today, Group 6 will be presenting about the effects of acid rain on architecture. Okay, before we continue with the presentation, let me introduce our group members first. Now, the first presenter is myself, Muhammad Faziman bin Muhammad Khalid. The second presenter will be Bushra Amali binti Muhammad Nuri. The third presenter will be Nurul Shakirah binti Sazali. The fourth presenter will be Nurul Rafi'ah binti Muhammad Asri. And lastly, Aina Sasalbila binti Badru Isham. This is the contents of our presentation today. First, I will be presenting about how acid rain affect architecture with reaction between acid rain with materials used for architecture. Second is the effect of acid rain on architecture, which will be presenting by Musha Amali and Nurul Shakira. They will be presenting about destruction of calcareous stone and cement and increased corrosion rate of metals. And lastly, examples of architecture affected by acid rain, which will be presenting by Nurul Rafi'ah and Aina Sasabila. The example will be inside Malaysia and overseas. Okay, so how acid rain can affect the architecture? Before we go more deeper into the topics, we have to know about the common materials used for buildings, statues and monuments, which are limestone, marble, sandstone, cement and metals. Limestone is basically the calcium carbonate, and marble, sandstone, cement have the mixture of calcium carbonate and other chemicals. Metals, for example, copper, bronze, nickel and so on. Okay, next. So, acid rain can react with calcium or calcium carbonate and metals that are the materials that I mentioned before. So, the reaction can cause the calcium or calcium carbonate to dissolve and deteriorate, which make buildings, statues and monuments to crumble and become unstable over time, and metals to corrode. For example, copper can react with acid rain and oxidize into greenish stain, which make the copper look green, not silver and shiny looking as before. Okay, these are one of the general chemical reaction that happen when acid rain react with the materials. For example, calcium carbonate or limestone react with sulfuric acid or acid rain to produce calcium carbonate and carbonic acid. So the calcium sulfate is in the reaction is soluble in water, which can cause the limestone to dissolve and crumble. I think that's all for me. I pass to Bushra Amali.
So next, I will explain about the effects of acid rain on architecture. So as said by my friend Faziman, the common materials that architects use for build a building is limestone, marble, steel and brass. Why they choose this? Because they are durable materials that intend to resist the elements. So acid rain can ruin buildings and statues by stripping away the material and corroding metal that make up this structure. But to their surprise, chemical reaction between the acid rain and building materials led to visible deterioration over time, dissolving structures like water does to a sugar cube. Acid rain damage buildings and structures because it dissolves the stones or corrode the metals that exposed to the weather. Before people became aware of the problems that acid rain caused, they often used metals, limestones and marble as building materials that exposed to rain and fog. Some of these materials contain calcium carbonate or calcium-based compounds which can be dissolved by acid rain. Sandstones holds up better to acid rain, but can be marred by black surface deposits over time. Acid rain have high pH level, which is between 3.0 and 5.0, and it have great effect on calcareous stones such as marble, limestone, and sandstone. The calcium carbonate in this stone react with sulfur present in dry deposition and forms calcium sulfate as shown in the slide. This is soluble and the acid so form a wash off from the surface when next it rains. According to study by Adewale and his friends in 2020, the structure, carvings, and monuments made of these materials are damaged and their features are lost. They are also disfigured by the black crust that was formed. In addition, their study shows that 30% of erosion by dissolution could be attributed to this phenomenon. Basically, dissolution is accelerated by increase in the porosity of the cement paste, concentration of the acid, the solubility of the calcium salts of the acid, and the fluid transport of the concrete, exposing the aggregates in the concrete structure. In the similar manner, other buildings fabrics containing cement paste are weakened by acid rain, which it attacks the mortar joints of bricks, stones, and tile, thus causing the brick and stone structure to crumble and the tiles to fall off. Therefore, it results in weakening in the structure of the architecture, which make it fall. The hydrogen ion in acid rain equally attacks the calcium hydroxide in the hardened cement paste and is further corroded by sulfate ion as shown in the slide.
Hi, I am Shakira and now I will explain the next effect of acid rain on architecture, which is increased corrosion rate of metals. The contact of acid rain with metals can increase the corrosion rate of metals, especially at urban area, which is 2 to 10 times faster compared to rural area. So how this process is going to happen? It begins with iron comes contact with acid rain, and then the acidic water will produce additional proton and it will produce iron with a positive charge. So this is the equation of the reaction. And then metallic ion combines with more oxygen and form iron oxide, which is rust. These are the examples of rust. So here are some of the examples of metal that affected by acid rain, which are rooftop, downspouts, nails and screws, and also metal fences. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nurul Rafiah Asri and I would like to proceed with the example of architecture that got affected by the acid rain. So, I will explain about the example of architecture that were affected by the acid rain in Malaysia. So, first example, the building that was built in 1897, which is the historical building Sultan Ahmad Shah Buildings. This building experienced acid rain effect that give corrosive effect and disengagement process. Next, we proceed with the second example of architecture that was built in 1884, which is Selangor Club Building. This building, its roof portion of this building is darkened in color due to the dust that got trapped by the gypsum. Next, the third example of architecture that got affected by the acid rain in Malaysia that was built in 1910, which is the Kuala Lumpur Railway Station. This building is the result of acid rain effects which contaminated the wall and the dome area and developed into a dark color. Last but not least, the example of architecture that got affected by the acid rain in Malaysia that was built in 1897, which is the fountain at Dataran Merdeka. This fountain was affected by acid rain, which contributes to the oxidization of bronze and copper metals that turning them into green. That's all from me. Let's proceed with the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aina Sasabila. So today, I will tell you about the architecture that has been affected by acid rain in overseas. There are actually many famous buildings which are at risk when it comes to the acid rain which we as a species are helping to produce. Some of these historic buildings and monuments could soon be lost if they continue to be hit by the acid rain. The first one is Taj Mahal. We all know Taj Mahal as a jewel of India, a mausoleum of such fantastic grandeur that it attracts visitors from around the world. But India is a country which has rapidly developed as a nation, producing more and more factories which pump pollutants into the air. when the acid rain attacks or fall on the Taj Mahal, the monuments get corroded. This is because Taj Mahal is completely made of marble. Acid rain reacts with marble to form a powder-like substance which is then washed away by the rain. This phenomenon is called marble cancer. This is why the color of Taj Mahal changed from white into yellow. The next one is an ancient Greek monument, which is the Acropolis. According to the Athens Macedonian news agency, Farnans reported there has been serious damage to the walls, especially sensitive walls made of limestone, including the disappearance of joints and the penetration of water in the foundation of the buildings. The walls of the ancient city have more erosion than in the past. This is because Greece has similarly seen industrial progress and an increase in vehicles which pour out pollutions. Due to that, pieces of these ancient monuments are now flaking away, and it won't be too long before the structure is lost. Lastly, the Leshan Buddha in China, which is the giant statue which has now been blackened and partially corroded by acid rain. The structure is made of sandstone, which is vulnerable, but recently the government has tried to protect the statue by shutting down any factories and soot-creating plants nearby. Although this has helped, it does not protect the statue from the inevitable acid rain caused by the industrial expansion of modern China.